For SME bosses, they face a lot of challenges hiring locals. So one of the programs that we recently rolled out, and it will be launched in November officially, is this program called Overseas Markets Immersion Program. So it supports businesses to send their locals, whether it's Singaporeans or PRs, without relevant experience out to the market and then bring it back to your company to groom the next generation of leaders. I think that's so important to maintain Singapore's key advantage.
Most of us don't realize the future is actually already here.
Okay, welcome back to TFC Business Show. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and today we are talking about a very, very important topic. Okay, I think this whole distributed workforce environment is a new frontier for a lot of Singapore companies. I think it's a kind of Pandora's box that you open post-COVID. Then people start thinking like, it actually can. But as you open up, you realize actually also a lot of problems. Right? It's not so simple. So we are here to discuss, and I'm joined by Heikel. For our audience that don't know you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, hi guys. My name is Heikel. I also host podcasts, but here today I'm just helping Reggie lah. And no, I'm here to also talk about these very important topics lah, because I'm also here to learn. I've also worked in the private sector, so I do have experience in this a little bit. So maybe I want to hear what our speakers have to share, and also
but to set the ground, you also have a distributed team, right?
Yes,
in
I do.
Different parts
I
of
do.
ASEAN
Yeah,
region.
so it's distributed around Southeast Asia, and we want to try to make it work as best as possible lah.
Yeah. And I think that's all entrepreneurs want that lah. Right. So with our set, we have two esteemed speakers.
Oh, wow.
Right. Yeah. Hey, your hit rate very high. Right. Your
Really?
download numbers very good. That's why you get to come back again. For somehow our audience still don't know you, you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks a lot, Reggie. So I'm Prelim. I'm Commercial Director at Glints. Glints is a Singapore headquartered venture capital backed HR business. We're actually regional, so we also have a distributed team, but we are very much in the business of actually helping, especially Singapore-based businesses, to build distributed teams in Southeast Asia. So that's part and parcel of our day-to-day.
I think that's the core, not part and parcel. That's like your core offering, right? And we will discuss that as we go along. Yes, and we have Shirley. You want to introduce yourself for our audience?
My name is Shirley. I'm from Workforce Singapore. I come from a group called Enterprise Development, and our main role is to support businesses in Singapore in their workforce matters. So ranging from reskilling, upskilling, recruitment matters as well.
Okay.
Support businesses.
Support businesses. What does it mean? Can you expand a little bit? Like what does supporting businesses today mean?
Okay, so we try to understand what businesses are going through in terms of their business needs, their workforce challenges that they face, and then see how we can gather support, especially in the area of incentives, to encourage them to grow their businesses, to make jobs better, to reskill and upskill their workers so that they have growth skills, and of course they can command higher salary.
So in the space of like manpower, or do we still use manpower, or we call it talent pool? In the space of talent pool, what are some struggles that SME bosses are experiencing? Because you are in contact with so many of them, right? So can share a little bit.
I think for SME bosses, they face a lot of challenges hiring locals, right? Singaporeans, PRs, because they tend to have the perspective that SME, unlike MNCs, their brand is less known. For SME, you really have to cover many functions, unlike specialized functions.
That's why in SMEs, you don't call multi-hatter. Everybody is multi-hatting all the time, right?
But I think that's not so bad a thing, because for the individual, you really acquire different kind of skills across different functions, and it can be very exciting, right? To learn the various type of businesses.
Okay, great. So maybe we can kind of open up the floor a little bit. What is your experience, in managing a distributed workforce?
For me, I was helping the business that I work with really put people on the ground across Southeast Asia, because we needed people on the ground to be able to talk to our local stakeholders, right? And we needed that face time. We needed to make sure that the business has a face on the ground as well. But as things went by, I saw that it was not just these particular roles that were going to be hired elsewhere.
So those are client facing,
yeah,
right?
those are client facing. Those are the one that we know that people need to talk to people. Yes, we have to have those,
yes.
right? But then after that, suddenly it became the other roles also lah. So suddenly the other roles that we felt like sekali is a little bit more difficult to hire in Singapore. Let's try, since we already have the company incorporated elsewhere, let's see whether we can try hire for these roles elsewhere. We tried one, then after that, it quite good. We tried to hire another one, and it became a proper team then being built elsewhere across Southeast Asia regionally. But I was wondering whether is this actually something that's quite common around
It's
businesses
hubbing, right?
there,
Essentially.
It's quite common. So actually your experience is probably quite typical of a lot of SMEs in Singapore.
Yeah.
When you start to think about hiring distributor is a fancy term. Just like you say it's new, actually it's not a new word for something that's been happening. The first use case is what Heiko was talking about. Usually it's I need to go expand and I need to have people on the ground to meet the customer. Very obvious use case. The second one is save money. And why is that? Because you're taking advantage of wage arbitrage. Singapore versus wage cost in different parts of the nearby region. So in Indonesia or Vietnam or Philippines versus Singapore, like for like, there's probably an arbitrage that you can benefit from. But I think what you're talking about, right, is that I think post-COVID, actually in the second one, it starts to evolve a little bit more from like, hey, it's not just about saving money. You start to realize, hey, because there's some roles that are very difficult to find in Singapore, you can actually find, and now because when we talk about saving money and efficiencies, right, usually people immediately think of like the most mechanical and most junior roles. So customer service or like operational, administrative, back office, right? Paperwork sort of stuff. But then you start to realize, hey, hold on. You start to explore Indonesia a bit more. You explore Vietnam or Philippines or Malaysia a bit more. And especially in this last few years, the talent quality has actually gone up a lot. So the skills have improved a lot. And what that actually gives you is more options. So now it's not just the most mechanical roles that you're pushing out. You're actually looking, hey, there's some, for example, in the software side, application development, you can actually get some pretty good people in the region. You start to look at marketers, digital side especially. Event marketing, you still need to be pretty much on the ground, onshore. But if you talk about digital stuff, performance marketers, or even the creatives to support that, actually the quality is there. Then you start to realize, oh, exactly as Heiko says, there's an option. So it's becoming more of a norm now. The awareness is coming up and people are saying, hey, okay, I can actually build teams in and around the region to support my business in Singapore.
How does that affect the talent pool here,
Yeah.
though?
That's why I work for Singapore, very stressed.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can see that talent is improving elsewhere. How are we keeping up to make sure that we still can land jobs here, basically?
I wanted to highlight 2 points and share a story as well. I was talking to a Singapore brand in a space of electronics, and he mentioned that he had challenges hiring customer service reps in Singapore. The first layer of customer service team, he built it up in Philippines. But he said that that's not because it was intentional. It was because he couldn't get Singaporeans. And therefore, what you said about identifying the job role, the critical job role is very important, right? And he said that the Singapore layer plays a very important part because for customer service, if you have any problems with your products, and you are talking to a Singaporean, your Singaporean will not be very happy to talk to somebody in Philippines, and that Filipino might not know the context of, for example, a 4-room flat, HDB flat in Singapore, 5-room flat. So I think local market knowledge is very important, right? The cultural affinity is very important as well. So identifying this job role to be based in Singapore, I think is something that businesses need to think about. And then encouraging SME or businesses to go overseas to build up the team, it is good. It's sustainability in the longer term. But I think it's also good to think about which Singaporean or which local core you want to send over, because it represents your brand, it represents a culture that you want to build over there. And within the government space, there are a lot of incentive support programs to encourage companies to do that. So one of the programs that we recently rolled out, and it will be launched in November officially, is this program called Overseas Markets Immersion Program. So it supports businesses to send their locals, whether it's Singaporeans or PRs, without relevant experience out to the market to grow their businesses. And the support is in the area of salary as well as allowance. If the businesses send these employees to be located in one city for at least 6 months, we support up to 9 months, up to 70% of their salary and up to 70% of monthly allowance capped at $3,000.
Oh, that's really good.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, I think my guy's gonna sign up for this. It's like, hey boss, can send me Thailand or something.
So yeah, the salary is capped at 5,000, but up to 70%.
70%, 5,000 cap, and then there's still an allowance on top of it.
Yeah, over a period of 9 months.
Wow.
So I think it's something to encourage businesses to take advantage of this to send your Singaporeans or PRs out to help you build your business in that local market.
Okay, these numbers, right, they don't come from the sky. There must be some scoping on this, right? So 5,000, we are looking at the median wage in Singapore. So are we targeting at like middle managers in the SME space? You know, they kind of make about that. We're trying to push them out to get a regional exposure, is that?
This program is open to anyone who has worked in the industry for 2 years. So if you're talking about fresh grads and they have gone out to the industry to work for 2 years and your company thinks that this person is a potential leader for your company and you want to send out for overseas exposure, you may do so. So it's a broad-based workforce program to develop anyone who has more than 2 years of experience. And there's no
upper limit, right?
no age cap.
Interesting.
What's the idea behind that, Shirley? In terms of helping Singapore companies place locals elsewhere, what do you hope to achieve from that?
We want to build a pool of locals who are globally competitive. Whether it's your SMEs or your MNCs, you want Singaporeans or your PRs to be able to contribute and to compete globally, right? They have the skill sets to take the company to greater heights, right? And to help them to expand as well.
Yeah. But you still want them to come home, right? Eventually.
We actually leave it to the company whether you want to base the person there or to bring the person back after 2 to 3 years. And the key point is to expose this person, right? So that he or she have the relevant skills to compete and to grow as an individual as well as to grow the business.
Fair. And I think building on that point, a lot of SME Tauques also say like, I want to do this business in Cambodia, I want to do this business, in Thailand, but I cannot be based there all the time. So I need to bring trusted Singaporeans to go there to lead. And actually, they also struggle to find people that can do that. It's not as big a talent pool, not that don't have, right? And when the talent pool is small, means expensive.
Yeah.
You always have to pay a premium, right? When there's supply and demand. So I think a part of doing this could probably open up that pool. So more Singaporeans have a general sense. So, I've done a 2-year stint in Thailand. I've done a 1-year stint in Indonesia. I have a little bit more experience around. Easier to kind of bring the next batch of Singapore companies, around.
So you talk about the pool of job seekers or employees might not have the relevant experience, right? And therefore, this program, Overseas Market Immersion Program, actually encourages businesses to look for people without relevant experience. I think for employers, they like to take a plug and play approach. They want the perfect fit, but in a manpower constrained economy, right, you sometimes cannot get the right fit. And to widen your manpower pool option, we're saying that as long as this person has potential, has good attitude, have soft skills that's transferable, domain knowledge can be built. Right, give that person an opportunity, and government is here to defray your operating costs in a sense, because we know that the person might not be able to straight away contribute immediately, and the person needs to be reskilled or upskilled in certain manner, right? And therefore, the salary support is there for that purpose.
And that essentially is trying to build the Singapore core, right? But what is the Singapore core today, right? Because like what you said, a lot of these even so-called higher skilled talent things our neighbors all can do these days, right? So even on our own end, a lot of technical functions, have been kind of moved abroad. So what then is the Singapore core from your experience working with so many companies?
So actually, I'm very aligned with what Shirley was sharing, right? Because I don't think it's about substitutive. It's complementary, actually. I think of the distributor or the regional workforce as a force multiplier for Singapore businesses, the SMEs. When you talk about expansion, that's a very easy way to think about it. Expanding, you're actually magnifying or amplifying your business. But even when you talk about pushing certain, as you say, technical functions out, right? Even if the higher order skills today are becoming more available in the region, I still think of it as a force multiplier. It simply implies that the nature of the work in Singapore, right, has to evolve. I say this, right, honestly, I think it's not just about distributor or regional workforces, it's also with the increasing automation, right, AI and whatnot, and all that's going on. These are mega trends. These are happening, right? So as these things go on, whether it's rising talent quality and talent skills in the region and or rising use of automation, the challenge it imposes on the Singapore core, and it would be great to hear Shirley's view on this, I think actually it requires the roles and the talent here even evolve more towards things like critical thinking, leadership, effective communication, problem solving, and creativity.
Yeah, but these things, right, have been talk of the town for like 15, 20 years, right? Why is it still lacking, you know?
I don't think it's lacking. And you mentioned that for regional talent, their skills are increasingly getting better. And therefore, Singapore also needs to level up in terms of our workforce skills, right? So we're emphasizing a lot on growth skills. At Workforce Singapore, we have actually collaborated with different agencies to mount the jobs transformation map. Basically, this JTM, I call it in short form, highlights the different trends, challenges that different sectors are facing, the kind of jobs that will be impacted currently, as well as the emerging jobs, right? And it highlights how you need to redesign those jobs that are impacted by trends, technology, changing consumer preferences, business processes. So those jobs that are highly impacted need to be redesigned. And it talks about how the business should be redesigning a particular role and what are the skill sets that they should be equipping their employees with. So we have 23 sectors and we are rolling out jobs transformation map. So it's a very good document to showcase, the different kind of trends, challenges, and how businesses should respond. So we're leveling up the skills of the Singaporean core as well.
I can share a couple of stories as well. I mean, maybe one from a startup and then one from a larger enterprise. Because Glints, obviously, we work with a lot of such companies, right, in helping them design and construct such solutions. So if I start with the startup, I think I can name them. So I think everyone might be quite familiar with GetGo. They're a big car sharing app these days, right? You see the cars going around. Their product and engineering leadership sits in Singapore and largely Singaporean over here. Yeah. So that's the core for them. The creativity and the critical thinking around like what needs to be built, the roadmap design and all that, that's set here. However, significant proportion of their software team actually being managed by us. We help them hire, build a site for them, put a team there, and then handle all the HR matters of that in Indonesia. And that works for them, right? So it's a complementary thing. It's a force multiplier. It helps them to do it cost efficiently. Of course, that's a plus, but it's no longer just about cost efficiency. It's also about what value do you want the people in Singapore to create? Does getting them to handle just the coding, is that the value you want? Or do you want your HR team in Singapore to be handling all the payroll matters of these? Is that the value? Or do you want to be then be thinking about things like the product roadmap on the side, on the HR side, maybe the culture? Take a larger enterprise, right? So it's not just the startups who are thinking this way. So we work for one of the largest financial services, insurance companies, right, in Singapore, multinational. I won't name them.
But there are only those few.
Can guess that. You pick and choose that. You try.
You know.
These days, the customer-facing applications that they have on, and most commonly it's about claims, right? Making your claims experience easy. So they had a relaunch of this last year and, it's a vastly improved experience. And you look at it and then you think, hey, who's the one who's building this? Again, it's a tech team. The thought leaders are here in Singapore. That's the engineering leadership. That's the business side. That's the product side. But then the building team, the coders, and this is everyone from your front end to your full stack guys and your quality assurance guys to make sure it's bug free and all that. Those guys are in Indonesia. And it works, right? And it's a better experience, it's a better outcome for the business, ultimately here in Singapore.
I can add to that, right? In the beginning, I think Shirley was talking about how SMEs, your brand is not very big. So you struggle to get the best talent. That is the truth, right? In a landscape where your management trainee program, you this, that, all the big brands, big band, they all come in. I always find it very hard to get the best people. But when I start to explore the technical team in other parts of the region, I can afford a slight premium to make up for the lack of brand affinity locally. Because over there also got big brands, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
But because I'm not as big, but because of that wage compression that I can subject that
I
job
would say
to.
it's even more than that because I would say thanks to Singapore government mainly, actually Singapore as a brand is very powerful in the region.
I've cross-checked with a few people. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Right? Yesterday, all the panels, I asked them, so how you go Middle East, Singapore, good? Say, yeah. They also like that. So, and sometimes we hear, we don't know if it's true, right? But then you listen from some of the
Hear it
SMEs.
from the horse's mouth.
Then they say, it's true. So it's interesting.
And to the talent pool, right? I mean, again, I use Indonesia as an example, right? To a young graduate today from the top tier universities in Indonesia, this is the likes of UI, University Indonesia, or Bandung Institute of Technology. These are the best schools and the cream of the crop, right? You give them an opportunity to work for a Singapore-based business. It's exciting. It's aspirational.
Very, very attractive, right?
It's very attractive.
Even from your experience?
I think so too. I think whenever we offer something, we tell people that we are a Singapore company, right? And there's an opportunity to work for a foreign company, it's become a lot more attractive. These sometimes also increase their asking.
Asking a bit higher.
Asking.
No, but it's not about the asking, right? Ultimately, it's about the type of quality of work that comes out of it, right? And you'll be surprised sometimes the quality of work is just impossible to beat,
I
It's very
agree.
hard.
And I wonder, like, in terms of how we are now, like you guys said, is a transformation of that job role and the job seekers in Singapore and that talent pool in Singapore in terms of evolving their skills and all that. How do they then make sure while they are evolving that they're not losing out to this regional talent pool then, right? So it's important to make sure that we have that Singapore core. But while they are evolving, what do we do then to make sure that we are relevant and we can actually stay in our jobs?
That's why it's important to send our local core out to different markets, right? To gain exposure, to be able to understand the markets, the challenges, and the kind of environment that's evolving. And then bring it back to your company to groom the next generation of leaders. Yeah, I think that's so important to maintain Singapore's key advantage, right?
But are there enough of these roles that you think that could actually be filled elsewhere for Singaporeans to actually take up these skills and all that? Are there these opportunities that are out there at the moment?
I think that one must be led by Singapore companies, right? Because the whole idea is the
Yeah, I
Singapore
think so too.
companies want to go out. And from the SBF
You're right.
MTI report, right, it all shows that Singapore companies want to go out.
They have to go out to be sustainable in the longer term.
The business landscape has reached a point where it's very matured.
Yeah.
If you want to grab a bigger pie, you go out, right? And so many of my friends, they run lean and mean companies, and start really fast. And they grow, dominate Indonesia. There's a whole business landscape out there that's much bigger.
But I think EDB is also doing a good job. You talk about MNCs, right? When they woo the MNCs to Singapore, I think one of the key thinking is also to get the MNCs to develop your Singaporean core, right? And giving them the opportunity to go out and be exposed.
Yeah, but the Singapore core that work at MNC don't really want to work for SME. Right?
Different
But
level.
this one different level. But this one is a personal choice.
Depending
Right?
on life stages. Like what I said, SME offers good ground for different kind of exposure, different kind of jobs, which can be very exciting rather than a very specialized one.
It's true.
So it really depends on what the individual is looking for at the career stage
Yeah,
of their
and
life.
sometimes I hear SME Tauke say things like, train, after a few years, join MNC. It's a thing. But the truth of the matter is every industry is like that. Everywhere you go is like that.
Yeah.
You must strategically recognize that you as a company, you are small. You are the platform. The people come in, after they do a few years, then they will go and join CNA,
Yeah.
right? They will go and join.
Unfortunately, we are a
whatever.
stepping stone.
We are a stepping stone, and it's fine as long as you are clear about it. Then you can plan the journey of the individual, and you can maximize that training process. You know that this is what you're good for.
Thanks, Regi, for bringing that out
all.
because I think we cannot expect someone to work in a company for
Realistic
10, 20 years anymore,
yeah.
right? People are looking for new opportunities, exposure, but it's how you are retaining them as long as you can. So we're also encouraging companies to look at building the career health of the company. And what I mean by career health is not just your regular appraisal process whereby you assess whether the person has done the job well. Career health entails a bigger concept of really putting in place in a company structures to support regular career conversations with your employees and individuals on their development, on their skills gap, on their strengths, and where they can progress within the company. If you put that in place and you regularly engage your employees, hopefully they will think and they will know that you're investing in them, right? They're more willing to contribute to the company and stay longer within the company.
For the Gen Z professional, that's really important.
I add on to that, right? One of the LinkedIn guys, friend that came out, right? He told me, right, Gen Z these days change job about 9 months.
Yeah.
9 months
months,
is a job change. Yeah,
Last time when I put 9 months in my CV, that's a red flag.
Hey, don't say already.
But it's an evolving ecosystem, right? Glints, I think you know, right? We run this survey every year, talent report, right? And we speak to the respondents and all that to try to understand what's top of mind for them. I think top 3 things that come out, learning and development or career progression is really, really one of the top 3. And now it's flexible work arrangements, slightly controversial topic these days, I think. Yeah. The last one is a sense of culture, purpose.
Yep.
So wanting to make an impact, right? I think that's really important. Yeah.
Just to clarify, I'm not saying Gen Z.
No,
Just to
no.
clarify, I think what the data shows is the engagement of Gen Z workforce is to be different. It cannot be the same like 10, 20 years. All the Taukes is from 10, 20 years ago, they Tauke, now they still Tauke, right? So a lot of the SME bosses, they use the old method with the newer Gen Zs, which does not work. And we can go into the nooks and crannies of the causality as to why it's like that, but not important, right? What's important is 9 months. Within 9 months, you must rotate them, right? You must kind of give them next level of engagement.
I think it's important to understand what this talent pool is actually looking for, right? And the career health, that roadmap. If you actually then understand what they want to achieve in their career, what can you then give during that portion of their career in your company, and making sure that you are tapping their skills for that particular period to its maximum lah.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not sure really it's as short as 9 months.
Glints have a different data set. Fight.
No, but this one's just sharing Glints ourselves because we are quite a young company as well. I think average age in Glints is definitely somewhere between 25 to 30 lah, okay? And we have something we call tour of duty. Tour of duty is typically set between 24 to 36 months. But it's a conversation and agreement between the hiring manager and the employee. What do you want to achieve? And how do we align it with business goals? And let's make that happen for you in this committed period of time frame. And we check in to make sure that you're making progression on that. And this is not just about hitting your targets or whatever. It's about your career ambition. Then that's a stage. And then when we get to that stage, then we say, okay, let's talk about your next tour. Yeah, so it's a commitment, right?
But at what size can these type of processes work? Or maybe is it just not as formal?
I think the heart of it is whether you know the needs of the employee or not, right? I've seen several HR practitioners, very interesting. They are re-looking at the way they hire and engage their employees, right? Instead of telling them, no, this job requires you to do this, and clock in how many hours, they're saying, what is your need? I will change my job to suit your need if I do value you.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting approach, right? That businesses should start looking at, because today your Gen Z is looking for fulfillment and engagement. And a standardized job might not work for everybody.
But that being said, I want to adjust the Gen Z mindset a bit, right? You must have negotiating power. When you come into the interview, you can ask for the sky. Make sure you got something to give. Because the conversation is a little bit one way in my point of view these days, right? Which is like, oh, we keep telling companies, HR professionals, you must, be more flexible, which is well and good, right? But on the other end, you must come in with something, right? You must be able to show me that, oh, I can do this, I've done this, on my own time out. You don't do Discord, right? I do Discord, right? You don't do this thing, I know how to do this thing.
Yeah.
So you must have something on the table to negotiate with. Don't just think, oh, because the big environment out there is like that, then you can just negotiate. You know what I mean?
Something I do want to say though, I think just to connect the dots a little bit back to what we were saying earlier.
Yeah, the Singapore call.
Yeah, and just now, and also you were asking the question like, at what size of company can you afford to have these conversations? I think it's precisely when you start to think about things like what is the Singapore core and what do you want your HR practitioners here to be actively thinking and spending time on? That's when your things like what tasks or jobs need to be automated, what tasks or jobs need to be distributed, really connects the dots. Because if you can take payroll and you can take some of the admin stuff, put it out there and let either the system to settle it or another set of workers situated in a different location to take care of it in the region, then over here, you have HR practitioners who are thinking about engagement, thinking about planning out career progression, thinking about culture, thinking about flexible work arrangements, right?
Yeah. And I think that's what the next generation of leaders want to do also, right? They don't want to process payroll.
Yeah, exactly.
All this can automate, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay,
Exactly.
very, very interesting.
And they want to elevate that status. I think that Singapore core has a elevated status, I think, in the region as well.
Yeah.
Going back to that whole, suddenly that person is doing marketing for the entire region and all that. I think we've seen that happening for quite some time already in Singapore. And I think that's where people will try to keep on going. And for them to be able to hold those roles, as you said earlier, Shirley, I think people have to go out. I think businesses have to be open to let people go out and experience working elsewhere.
Yeah. And also along the way means we'll make mistake lah,
Yeah,
right?
for
Cannot
sure.
bao jia one lah, right?
For
You will
sure.
lose some money, you will make some business failures. It's okay.
Yeah.
Manage the risk and then we learn from there, right? Okay, maybe in closing, we go one round, just to kind of share some quick, other things that you have not shared yet, quick tidbits for SME Tauke's to think of this Singapore core, what is the next decade? How will it look like, Yeah.
And I think next 10 years or so, I think people use this phrase, the future of work, right? And I think this is I'm paraphrasing a quotation by someone more famous. Most of us don't realize the future is actually already here, right? And I say that in the sense that when we talk about things like distributed workforces or really the increased use of automation, it is clear and present already here. If not in your current job and your current business, I guarantee you for sure in the adjacent job function of business is already taking place in some shape or form.
It's true.
So there is an urgency to this, right? To business owners, whether you're SME Tauke or you're working for a larger enterprise as a function or business owner, actually I don't think it's that big of a difference. I think you do need to be thinking about this. You need to be thinking about distributed workforces, automation, all that, not only from efficiency. You should think about it from value.
Yeah, okay. In order not to sound very like pressure, right?
Yeah.
Like stress, you don't do this, cannot. I think there's also an opportunity upside when you can kind of be more strategic with your capital, arrangements. You can actually expand your margin and then you can invest in the faster growth spaces because to be fair, a lot of SME bosses, they've been in the business for a while. They may be like in a oligopoly situation. You know, a few of the major people are here already. This thing will not grow further. You know, we're all kind of like, you are my client, I'm your client, right? That
Yeah.
kind of situation. If you can kind of unlock some margins, you can then use it to invest in higher growth
Yes.
environment and then do that breakthrough. Especially a lot of second gen entrepreneurs, they take over their family's business. Look at it, oh my God, so sian, right? So you must do some of these things to then be able to expand to the next level. I think it's a thing that you should do.
Yeah, definitely. For me, I just want to say, if we haven't emphasized it enough already, I feel that the Singapore talent pool is still very, very important. I think that we have what's there to offer that perhaps others in the region cannot offer. And I think we should not be easily overlooked just because of the bottom line, because everywhere else is cheaper, right? But then I think we have an expertise, exposure, and perhaps a little bit of standing that perhaps the other markets will not be able to offer. That's not to say that it's not important to explore the other markets in terms of their talent pool, because I think they can offer extreme great value to Singapore businesses and businesses regionally
It's
for
true,
that matter.
it's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
Force
force
multiplier.
multiplier.
Okay, yes.
I just want to summarize and highlight 3 key points so that it's easier to remember. The first is skills first hiring. The second one is future ready workforce. The third one is career healthy workforce. What do I mean by skills first hiring is to really encourage SME businesses to widen your hiring pool, to look at skills first instead of a relevant experience. Looking for people that can contribute rather than perfect fit. And there are a lot of support programs at WSG that could support the business. Future ready workforce. I want to encourage the SME businesses to really upskill and reskill your workforce in emerging growth skills, as well as growth skills outlined earlier on that I mentioned through the jobs transformation maps. The third one is career healthy. Put in place a structure, processes to retain your employee, to groom your employee so that they will stay longer with you, and to outline the progression pathways that they have within your company.
Great. Thank you. I think we do more to understand the other interesting programs, right? So that's for another time. And with that, I think we've come to the end of today's TFC Business Show. If you have any questions for them, put in the comment section. You can connect with them on LinkedIn. Bye.
Thank you.